1962, Morro do Cruzeiro. 1 dead man. 1966, Morro do Vintém. 2 dead men, same ritual, same orange lights in the sky the night each died. They weren't copying a legend. They were repeating a transmission that already worked once. The lead masks case. On the afternoon of August 20th, 1966, the kite of a young boy named Jorge da Costa Alves drifted off course. It led him into the rough, dense brush of Morro do Vintém Hill, in Niterói, Brazil. Pushing through the wet vegetation, Jorge stumbled upon a scene so surreal it would baffle Brazilian police for the next 60 years. Lying side by side on a makeshift bed of cut palm leaves were the bodies of 2 men. There were no knives to cut the leaves found nearby. They were dressed in expensive, formal suits, covered by waterproof raincoats. There were no signs of violence, no blood, but covering their eyes were crude, hand-cut eye masks made of solid lead from hammered plumbing pipes. They weren't blindfolds. They were shields. 2 days before, a man named Paulo Cordeiro Azevedo dos Santos was hunting birds on the same hill in Niterói. While there, he observed 2 men lying side by side. Unsure of the situation, Paulo looked for a nearby guard and found Antonio Guerra, but the guard did not decide to investigate further. 2 days later, the boy with the kite, Jorge da Costa, found the same men partially covered in grass. The men were identified as Manuel Pereira da Cruz, 32, and Miguel José Viana, 34. Both were well-respected electronics technicians from the town of Campos. They were family men. They were logical men who fixed radios and TVs, but they also had a secret life. When police interviewed Manuel's wife, she revealed the depth of the deception. He hadn't just said goodbye. He had tied up loose ends. He told her they were going to São Paulo to buy a car, a logical, safe explanation for why he was taking their life savings in cash. He kissed her goodbye, clutching a bag full of money and lead masks, knowing he might never return to the life he was leaving behind. The mystery of the lead masks, a transmission that continues to echo. Police pieced together their final hours. Their friend, Elcio Gomez, dropped them off at the bus station. They boarded a bus to São Paulo, carrying roughly 3 million cruzeiros, thousands of dollars today. 2 p.m. They step off the bus in Niterói with a ticket that proves they never planned to reach São Paulo. First, they stopped at an electronics shop to buy some components, but the shop did not carry them, so they left. 2:45 p.m. A shop clerk sells them 2 waterproof raincoats. He remembers them because they paid in crisp new bills and left without haggling. 3:15 p.m. Last human contact. A tiny bar at the foot of the hill. Miguel orders 1 bottle of mineral water and asks for the receipt. He returns the empty bottle immediately, obsessed with leaving no debt behind. The waitress will never forget Miguel's face. He kept looking at his watch like a man who had a train to catch, or a countdown only he could hear. When then police searched the men's bodies, the money was largely missing. Inside Miguel's pockets were a wedding ring tied to a pair of reading glasses and a wristwatch. Around the bodies were 2 towels in a paper packet, square pieces of cellophane paper soaked in a suspicious chemical, a handkerchief with the initials MAS, a newspaper, cigarettes, and 2 cups that had been fashioned from a sheet of aluminum foil. Handwriting experts confirmed Miguel wrote it, but the phrasing, the cold precision, felt dictated. Look closer at the paper. See that tiny mark in the top right corner? NC4. Some researchers believe it means numero de contado, 4. Contact number 4. as if this was the fourth attempt and the first three had already failed. 1630, be at the agreed place. 1830, swallow the capsule. After the effect, protect the metals, wait for the mask signal. Protect the metals. Not protect your eyes. Protect the metals. As if their wristwatches, wedding rings, anything conductive had to be shielded from whatever was coming. But this mission to Vintém Hill wasn't a spontaneous decision. It was the climax of a dangerous obsession that had been building for months. 2 months earlier, at Atafona Beach, Manoel, Miguel, and Elcio were seen testing a strange mechanical device. The experiment ended in a violent explosion so massive it shook the windows of nearby houses and was reportedly heard up to 10 miles away from the blast site. Friends noted that in the weeks following, the men became secretive, almost manic. They weren't just fixing radios anymore. They were preparing for an event they believed would change the world. Investigators discovered that Manoel and Miguel were members of a group calling themselves scientific spiritualists. They believed they could use electronics and technology to communicate with spirits, or extraterrestrials. Police interrogated Gomes. He admitted they were conducting experiments to contact Mars. He spoke of intense light and the need to protect their eyes. Was the lead meant to shield them from radiation or from a blinding divine light? He gave police conflicting reports about who drove to Atafona and claimed they were responsible for these experiments. But an employee of the two men reported Elcio was the one who led the incident. He also stated Gomez was Miguel and Manoel's spiritual advisor and held great influence over them. They turned to him for physical sicknesses, and this information left police wondering if this was how the men received the capsules they took that day. Manuel's wife reported that she witnessed an argument between her husband and Gomez, but he had an alibi for the time of his friends' deaths and came with receipts. The neighbors also reported seeing him working on his car at home during the time his friends were unalived. He was not arrested. He did, however, implicate another man named Alvarez de Sousa, who was detained for questioning. No charges were filed. Was Elcio Gomez trying to divert attention away from himself onto de Sousa? Most retellings of this story stop there. But there is a chilling detail that is often left out. 4 years earlier, in 1962, another electronics technician named Hermes de Melo was found dead on a different hill, Morro do Cruzeiro. He too was an electronics expert. He too had taken capsules, and lying next to him was a lead mask. Manoel and Miguel were not the first. They were following a protocol that had killed before. 20 kilometers north, across the bay, Morro do Cruzeiro still looms. The first man, the first mask, the first capsules. Hermes de Melo died alone. Manoel and Miguel chose to die together. Same ritual, same hill country, same orange lights reported in the sky the night each man was found. They weren't copying a myth. They were repeating a successful transmission. The condition of the bodies offered a terrifying paradox. There were no burns from radiation, no bruises from a struggle, no bullet holes. However, first responders noted the skin had taken on a distinct, unnatural pinkish hue, a forensic signature often associated with cyanide poisoning. But the most chilling detail came from nature itself. The bodies had been lying in the open for 3 days, and yet they were untouched. Witnesses claimed that vultures circled the hill constantly but refused to land. Whatever killed Manoel and Miguel, even the scavengers wanted no part of it. So, what happened on Vintém Hill? Theory 1, they made contact. Not a theory to the men on the hill, a fact. They had the place, they had the time. They had the capsules to open the door. They had the lead to survive the light. And right on schedule, at the exact minute the notebook predicted, Gracinda Barbosa and her 3 children watched an orange, cigar-shaped craft the color of molten copper hang silently above Vintém Hill, sweeping the jungle with blue-white beams, searching or answering. 3 days later, a little boy's kite led police to 2 bodies lying exactly where that orange light had been looking. The vultures refused to land for days. Animals sense radiation. Animals sense something that was never meant for Earth. Maybe the signal worked too well. Maybe the visitors don't take you in a beam of light. Maybe they take you with a heartbeat of orange fire and leave the shell behind wearing sunglasses made of lead. Theory 2. The perfect murder. The men were carrying a fortune in cash. Did someone, perhaps a third man who drove them to the hill, convince them to take the capsules as part of the ritual, knowing they were actually poison? It explains the missing money. Theory 3. The failed experiment. They followed the instructions perfectly. They took the capsules, they put on the masks to protect their eyes from the signal, and then they laid down to wait, and they simply drifted away. In the end, the hill kept its secret. The police closed the file. The newspapers moved on. Manoel and Miguel were lowered into the ground beside their families. 2 ordinary men wrapped in an extraordinary story. Maybe they were murdered for money. Maybe they miscalculated a dangerous experiment. Or maybe, for one brief night above Vintém Hill, something answered their signal. The masks, the capsules, the orange light in the sky. All that remains now are theories and a patch of earth where even the vultures would not land. Some transmissions are never meant to be understood, only received. The autopsy was delayed for weeks due to bureaucratic incompetence. The assistant improperly stored the organs, and by the time the autopsy was performed, they were too decomposed for toxicology. We will never know what was in those 2 hills, 2 sets of lead masks. One receipt for a bottle of water they were careful to return because they believed they were coming back, or because someone told them. They protected the metals. They waited for the mask signal, and on a humid August night in 1966, over a jungle hill outside Rio de Janeiro, the signal came. If you had been on that hill with a lead mask and a capsule, would you have swallowed? If you have a theory, leave it in the comments. And hit subscribe for more deep dives into the unknown. Until next time, stay creepy, Mysteriophiles.